In the busy city of Lagos was a man named David. David was a reserved civil servant in his late 30s. David had built a quiet life for himself in a modest apartment tucked into the lively streets of the town. His days were simple, filled with work, reading novels, and occasional trips to the local canteen for his favorite rice and stew. David's quiet life took an unexpected turn when he met Jennifer, a spirited 17-year-old vegetable seller. Every morning, Jennifer walked past his building with a tray of fresh spinach balanced effortlessly on her head, greeting him with a cheerful, "Good morning, sir." Her warm smile became a welcome sight in David's otherwise monotonous routine. At first, David thought little of it. But as time passed, her consistent politeness and sunny disposition began to draw him in. He started buying vegetables from her regularly, and their conversations grew longer. One day, Jennifer asked shyly, "Sir, do you have clothes I can wash? Or maybe I can help clean your house?" David hesitated, but eventually agreed. Jennifer began visiting his apartment every weekend, taking on chores like laundry, sweeping, and even cooking when needed. She worked diligently, humming tunes as she went about her tasks, and David appreciated her determination. She wasn't just a hardworking young girl, she was doing her best to support her family. Each month, David paid her for her work and occasionally added a little extra. Her gratitude was evident in her bright smile and the extra care she put into her work. If you're enjoying this gripping narrative, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I share real-life stories that educate, entertain, and challenge our perspectives. Don't forget to like this video and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future stories. Over time, Jennifer started visiting more frequently, no longer confining herself to weekends. She would call at odd hours, saying, "Sir, I'm near your side. Can I come?" David, being kind-hearted, didn't think much of it and always said yes. The neighbors, however, began to notice and started whispering. Whenever Jennifer was seen entering or leaving David's apartment, hushed comments followed. That man and that young girl, something must be going on, they speculated. David ignored the rumors, confident in his innocence. He trusted Jennifer and even left his spare key under the doormat on days he wasn't home so she could drop off vegetables or finish cleaning. But the gossip intensified when someone claimed Jennifer had been bringing a man into David's house. Shocked, David confronted her. To his dismay, Jennifer confessed. "I'm seeing Felix," she said quietly, her eyes fixed on the floor. Felix Morris was David's neighbor and friend, a 28-year-old known for his playboy antics. He had a girlfriend everyone in Lagos knew about, yet he had somehow entangled himself with Jennifer. "How did this even happen?" David asked, dumbfounded. Jennifer hesitated, then explained. It started the day David asked her to cook a vegetable stew for him and some friends. Felix had been there, and they had exchanged numbers. From there, a secret relationship blossomed. David felt a mix of guilt and anger. The connection had formed under his roof, and he couldn't help but feel partially responsible. He tried warning Felix to leave Jennifer alone, but Felix only laughed it off. "Relax, David, it's nothing serious," he said. David also tried reasoning with Jennifer, urging her to be cautious. "You're too young for him," he told her, but Jennifer insisted she knew what she was doing. Feeling powerless, David decided to limit her visits to weekends again. One Tuesday afternoon, Jennifer called David with a harmless request. "Sir, can I leave my vegetables in front of your house while I run errands?" she asked. David agreed without hesitation. A few hours later, Felix arrived at David's gate, helping a frail-looking Jennifer out of his car. "She's not feeling well," Felix said casually. "Let her rest here for a bit. My girlfriend is coming over, so I can't take her to my place." David was shocked but allowed Jennifer inside. Her pale face and trembling hands worried him. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered, "I'm bleeding." Jennifer revealed, in halting words, that she had gotten pregnant with Felix's child. Felix had taken her to a clinic for an abortion, but something had gone horribly wrong. Blood was now seeping through her clothes. Panicked, David called Felix, but his phone was switched off. Desperate, David ran to Felix's apartment, but it was empty. What do you think about David's situation? Was he truly at fault, or was he an innocent victim caught in the crossfire of others' decisions? Share your thoughts in the comments. The doors were locked, and no one answered his frantic knocks. His heart pounded as he looked around the quiet building. Where could Felix be? What had he done? David turned and hurried back to his apartment, praying Mary would still be alive. When he opened the door, his stomach dropped. Mary was lying on the floor, her face pale, her breathing shallow. A pool of blood had formed beneath her. "Mary!" David shouted, rushing to her side. He shook her gently, but she didn't respond. Desperation gripped him. He tried calling for help, but there was no time. His hands were shaking as he dialed the number of his neighbor, Mr. Ajayi, hoping he could help. But it was too late. Before Mr. Ajayi could arrive, Mary's body went limp in his arms. Tears welled up in David's eyes as he frantically tried to revive her, but it was useless. By the time the police arrived, David was on his knees, cradling Mary's lifeless form. They quickly began questioning him, their eyes full of suspicion. The scene was chaotic, and David struggled to explain what had happened. "She was just here a few hours ago." David insisted, but the officers looked at him with growing distrust. "Where's Felix?" they asked. David's throat tightened. Felix was nowhere to be found. No one knew where he had gone, and his phone was still off. The police made their way to his apartment, but found nothing, no sign of Felix, no evidence of where he had been or where he had taken Mary. David's mind raced. He had trusted Felix, but now he was beginning to question everything. The rumors, the warning signs, had he missed something? Soon, the story spread like wildfire across Lagos. The whispers began. David killed her, some said, while others believed he had been involved with her in a much darker way. The accusations mounted, and David found himself at the center of a storm of rumors and anger. The police, fueled by the growing public outrage, arrested David. They charged him with murder, claiming he had been involved in Mary's death. The case quickly gained attention, and the town was divided. On one side, the people believed David was an innocent man caught in a tragic situation. On the other, they saw him as a predator who had taken advantage of a vulnerable girl. As David sat in his cell, awaiting trial, the memories of that night haunted him. His mind replayed the events over and over again. Felix's disappearance, Mary's blood-stained clothes, the terror in her eyes before she passed out in his arms. But the more David thought about it, the more confused he became. Was he really just a bystander in this tragedy, or had he been a part of something much darker than he had ever imagined? The days in jail felt like a lifetime for David. His trial was set, but the outcome was already clear in the eyes of the public. His defense lawyer fought for his innocence, but the evidence against him seemed insurmountable. The testimonies from his neighbors, the accusations of his involvement with Mary, and the mysterious disappearance of Felix all pointed to one conclusion: David was guilty. As the court proceedings dragged on, David's mind turned darker. Felix had disappeared without a trace, and no one seemed to care. Was he ever going to pay for what he had done? Or was David now a scapegoat in a crime that he didn't commit? The media continued to spin their own version of events, painting David as a villain in a town gripped by fear. The pressure mounted, and David began to feel as though his only hope was to escape the nightmare somehow. But how could he? The weight of the charges against him was crushing, and with every passing day, the chances of clearing his name seemed slimmer. Finally, the day of the verdict arrived. The courtroom was packed, the tension thick in the air. David stood before the judge, his heart racing as the words "guilty" echoed in his ears. The court had spoken, and he was sentenced to death by hanging. His world crumbled as he was led away in handcuffs, the finality of the sentence settling over him like a cold shadow. Now, as David sat in his prison cell, waiting for the inevitable, he couldn't help but wonder, who was the real monster in this story? Felix, the man who had abandoned Mary when she needed him most? Or him, the man who had simply tried to help a young girl who had ended up lost in a tangled web of lies, betrayal, and loss? David's last thoughts before the trial echoed in his mind. I just wanted to help. But now, I'm the one paying the price. What would you have done if you were in David's shoes? Let's continue the discussion in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking stories like this one.